next guest, who is steeped in beefy tradition, has a differing opinion from mine as it's related to the dry-aged beef deliciousness. Best of all, located right here in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame city, dare I say, the barbecue capital of the North Coast, Cleveland, Ohio. So we go ahead and race to the hotline and welcome in first-time guest to the show. You can find him at MrBrisket.com. Hank Kornblat joining me here on the show. Hank, how are you, buddy?
I'm good, Greg. How are you?
I'm doing absolutely fabulous. Hank, am I saying the last name right? Please correct me.
You're close enough. The truth is, I don't know how it's pronounced. You're saying it the way I say it, so that's good.
Okay, well, as long as you say it that way, I will say it that way. Easy enough.
Yep. Thank you.
Hank, what's the exact tie-in for you to the Mister Brisket arena exactly?
Okay, so in the early 1970s, my stepfather's parents had a poultry business, a live kill poultry business in Cleveland, Ohio. My stepfather's father passes away. They closed the store, and there's a couple accounts left over. My stepfather ends up inheriting them, and he eventually starts to learn about quality meat and decides to open up his own butcher shop in Cleveland, Ohio. It was the first butcher shop in the Cleveland area that was selling prime meat. There was no one else doing anything like it at the time. He had all sorts of, high-level cuts of beef that he was purveying and delivering to people in their homes. He started it really in 1974. I sort of took it over about 10 years ago full time, and that's what happens when you go to college and major in English, I guess.
So you didn't have a burning desire to go teach the youth of America about dangling participles?
I'm not sure that I could, but no, not in particular.
So did you, were you around the business growing up then? I mean, aside from going to college
Sure.
and getting that degree, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, my stepdad was, a real foodie, and he was always bringing home really good meat, and he was having these lavish dinner parties and cooking for, 30 people in a tiny house, and it was a lot of fun. We used to go out to dinner all sorts of places. We would go to, New York a lot and go out to eat there because at that time, that was sort of the pinnacle of dining out, plus whatever places there were in Cleveland at the time. So, yeah, I was always around it. And then when I finished up college, I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do with myself. So I was sort of hanging around the business, helping out and coaching high school wrestling. And eventually I got married and had a family to support and got more and more involved in the business.
All right, so you kind of take it over, as you had mentioned. So was that around 2008, 2009?
Yeah, I mean, really around 2000. I guess we go back that far to say that's really when I became invested in the business.
Was it like, hey, I want to take this over? Or was it like, hey, Hank, take this over?
I would say it segued from one into the other. I just, I got married. I had, I was married for 10 weeks and my wife was pregnant. So imagine that.
Yeah.
And,
how does that happen?
So it was time.
Different
that's a
segment.
good question.
Different
I kept
segment.
telling my wife we needed to wait a while, but, that wasn't on her agenda. And it has been the case since we got married. She tends to sort of push us forward. So,
got it.
Yep. Anyway, so yeah, I got married and I had a kid on the way, and I had to really think about making a living. So my stepdad was happy to have me help. I was involved anyway, and I just took a more active role at the time.
Hank Kornblat joining me here on the show. The website, MISTER, MrBrisket.com, if you want to check it out here while we're talking. Hank, how has the store evolved over time in order to not only stay in business in the greater Cleveland area, but become a leader here locally and relevant across the nation?
First of all, thank you for the compliment. Saying that we're, relevant outside of Cleveland means a lot to me because that's something that, I've worked hard to do. The truth is it's adapt or die in the world of small business, and if you don't do things that you need to do to continue to appeal to the public, I mean, a lot of businesses have failed, in the last 10, 15 years because they weren't able to do that. It's not easy to stay in business as a small business. I think that, I mean, it sounds simplistic to say now, based on the fact that it's 2019 and everyone has a website, but, we made a point of getting a website at a time when it made sense to get one. We didn't think e-commerce was going to be the end all be all right at 2000 when everyone did. And we were right about that. But we went from being strictly a butcher shop specializing in premium quality raw meat products to, a place that was more, not only doing that, but also doing some prepared foods, like catering and sandwiches and this sort of thing. And we've always sort of been good about, doing different things. We have a handful of wholesale clients we take care of. We have our retail meat clients. We have, people coming in to eat. And then, of course, I've been very fortunate to have been discovered by the competitive barbecue community. I sell a reasonable number of briskets, that I ship out on a weekly basis all over the place to people doing competition, and I'm exceedingly grateful for that little chunk of business. So I think that it's just a matter of keeping your ears open and paying attention to what's going on around you, and trying to make sure that you are available to opportunities when they arise.
Did the competition world find you, Hank, or did you get in touch with somebody and then word of mouth grew from there?
A gentleman by the name of John Gamble, who had an outfit called Historic Barbecue, which is still in business.
Yep.
And still competing, primarily with Tony Bunce running it. John found me, and John sort of took me under his wing and taught me what was going on a little bit. At the time, I was selling strictly prime brisket, and he was buying them from me. And then he said to me, Hank, you're going to have to start carrying Wagyu briskets. And I didn't know anything about Wagyu meat at the time and what was going on with that. But he insisted that all the Southern barbecue competitors that were winning all the time were all insisting that's what you had to have. So he got me started moving in that direction. And, to this day, I'm still trying to learn everything I can about what products are available and which ones are good and why, and trying to do my best to make sure I have them available to people who want them.
Hank,
so that would be how I got started, though. Mainly it was John, and John sort of singing my praises to other people in competition and sort of getting my name out there a little bit. That's how it got started. John actually led me to Luke Darnell from Old Virginia Smoke,
yep.
and I've had a good relationship with Luke for the last several years. Luke and a guy, Mark Gibbs, who's got Checkered Flag Barbecue. Yep. He's another really fine competitor. And, lots of guys like that. But, having connections to some of these guys has been very helpful. If they like you and you do a good job for them, and the main thing I'm able to do is be their, eyes in the cooler, picking out what I believe are the best possible briskets for them and any clientele I have. They'll talk you up, and that's what we're all looking to do, is try and increase our sales out there as best as possible.
Hank Kornblat joining me here on the show from Mister Brisket. All right, Hank, so let's go ahead and get into the discussion of the evening here, which is dry aging. And I guess first and foremost, tell me why you hate dry aging's guts.
All right. First of all, I don't hate it. But I understand what you're saying, Greg. You saw what I wrote that one day on Facebook, and you saw it as a good topic of discussion. And I agree with you that it is.
Yep.
I'm going to give you my analogy. I happen to think, based on a couple tests that we've done at my store, that it's kind of like those Russian dolls. In other words, you have a doll, and then you open it up, and inside is another doll, and you open it up, and inside is another doll. They're all identical. They just get smaller. And I happen to think that when you take, a large rib roast or a bone-in strip loin, or you take a short loin or whatever you're using, and you age it for, about 40 days and you get that nice bark on it. I think that when you trim everything away, the meat you're left with does not taste different than it would have if you had left it alone. That's my opinion. The only thing I have to back that up is the fact that we've done several tests at my shop. And what we've done is we've had like 15, 20 people, and we've aged, a strip loin in one case, and another time we did it with a rib roast. And you take one that you've aged, you take one that you don't age, you trim them, you cook them, and then you give people the opportunity to taste and tell you what they think. And, in each case, what happened when we did these tastings was we'd say, well, do you think A is better? Do you think B is better? Or do you think there's C? There's really not a discernible difference. Mm-hmm. And in each case, the not a discernible difference won out. Now, there are other possible explanations for why that was the case, and there's people who would insist you didn't age it long enough, or maybe, even though they were both prime, one was better than the other, and that had an impact. I mean, there's lots of things that can affect it. But, I am well aware of the fact that aging meat is considered to be, something that you just have to do to make it taste better. I just feel that it's that there's absolutely no evidence, that it's all anecdotal. That's my opinion, of course, based on my experience.
Now, I'm certainly no meat expert. I'm certainly no dry aging expert, aside from talking to a bunch of people that appear to be experts. And I guess the line of delineation, and so I guess I'm surprised that your findings is 28 to 30 days. It's not a flavor thing. It's supposed to be some type of a tenderness thing. But past 30 days, so 40 days. I mean, if you go to Red the Steakhouse, I think they have a
40
44.
days is how long we've done it. Yeah.
Yeah. So there should have been, I guess, some kind of, for lack of a better descriptor, funk to the meat, in a good way, like a blue cheesy or something. But it just wasn't there for you guys at 40 days, right?
Greg, when you look at the meat, you absolutely want to believe that it's going to taste better. Because let's face it, you're wasting a lot of meat.
Right.
You let's say you start off with an 18-pound bone-in rib roast, okay? And you take it and you age it 40 days. Well, you're going to have to trim away, a lot of meat, and that's going to make it more expensive. So because it's more expensive, everyone, is invested in the idea that, hey, it's more expensive because we had to throw away a bunch of meat that had rotted away, essentially. So therefore, what's in there still is going to taste better. But does it taste better? That's the question. And again, when we've tested this theory out, it hasn't come back in any way to indicate to us that it tastes better. Now, having said that, I age 30 prime rib roasts every year at Christmas for customers because that's what they want. Mm-hmm. You can't fight the market, or it's silly to fight the market. Put it that way. I know that people want aged meat. I know that there's a market for it. I just don't personally think that it has an impact. So, that's just been my experience.
So if I come into Mister Brisket tomorrow, Hank, is there a dry aged section, or is that something that I have to get in touch with you and we have to put it away?
No, there's no dry aged section at the moment. This is a quieter time of year. So, you tend to lean out, run a smaller inventory. I mean, I have, a handful of prime aged rib roasts. I got some, Wagyu rib roasts that'll come in next week. But I don't have a ton of stuff in it at the moment. But I would say this, Craig, this would be an interesting, I'll pitch you here.
Yeah.
We could do a fun show live from Mister Brisket if you wanted, where I could age something for 40, 45 days. And we could get some people in my dining room. I have a room next door now that we built for sit down. We could, roast a rib roast that's been aged, one that isn't aged, and we could do it right there on the spot and do it live and see what people think and see if there's a difference. And we could, argue or not argue about it.
Yeah, I think that's a show that's got legs on it for sure. And if we can't do it live, I mean, we can at least record it.
That would be a good time.
Yeah, we can. Worst comes to worst. I'm always a little leery about doing anything live on location, but we could certainly record it, get all the audio and feedback, and then I could replay it for the show on Tuesday. But yeah, I think that would be great. Maybe even we could push it out to like 65 days. I mean, are you totally crazed
I'm
with?
game.
Are you crazed with the fact that Adam Perry Lang rolled out a 365 plus day dry aged piece of beef the other day?
No, I'm not crazed. I think that people are, marketing is marketing, and everyone is out there trying to, create a new trend, or come up with something different. And if you're gonna have an audience and they're gonna pay, then why not? So, the only thing I would caution is, boy, if you're gonna age something that long, if the blood curdles, it's not going to taste good. I don't know how you age something that long without without a problem with the flavor. But that's there are people who know a lot more about this sort of thing than I do. So.
Hank, if somebody's interested in either getting some beef, steak, or whatever, maybe some briskets, are there any like specials or promos that you're doing right now?
Yeah, well, especially the, when competition season slows down, these, Imperial, with whom which is a wonderful Wagyu company out of Blair, Nebraska, they suddenly were overwhelmed with, they suddenly had a large inventory on briskets, and I've bought out a significant part of their inventory, and I have a lot of beautiful big Wagyu briskets right now with great marbling that are just, that I'm selling for, $6.99 a pound if you buy one, $6.49 a pound if you buy two or more. I'm usually, $7.99 to $8.99 a pound on these things. So,
sure.
I'm selling them like crazy at the moment to, my competition customers, but I'm always looking for new ones. This is a great time to buy competition briskets from Mister Brisket, and just, store them away and get ready for your first comp of the season, and instead, and have a great brisket to pull out and compete with to start and get it at a bargain price.
The website is MrBrisket.com, spelled out M-I-S-T-E-R, MrBrisket.com. And again, great prices, Hank mentioned. So, Hank, we will definitely put together this new dry aging event. We'll market it.
Yeah.
We'll maybe do it live.
A lot of fun.
I think that would be absolutely great. And then, of course, I have to get out there and meet you in person. I mean, I've been living in Cleveland for 20 years and hosting a barbecue show. I mean, where the hell am I? That's shame on me. Can't believe it. But anyway, I appreciate you making time this evening. Again, MrBrisket.com. And we'll talk to you again soon, Hank. Thanks so much.
Greg, thank you.
You got it. There he is. Mister Brisket, Hank Kornblat. MisterBrisket.com.